Yeah, once again, kia ora koutou, and welcome to the panel discussion on right to repair legislation for Aotearoa. My name is Brigitte Zistek, and I'm going to be your host today. And so please know that this session is being recorded. So we'll start with the karakia timatanga. Na mihi o te rā, ki te whānau e huhui nei mai. Kia tau te rangi Māori, kia whakatāpua tātou, me ngā mea e whakapono ano tātou. Haumie, huie, taekie. So in English, this reads, greetings of the day to the whānau gathered here. Let peace be with us, and may we respect each other and what we believe. Join all together, bind all together. Let it be done. This appears an appropriate blessing for this meeting, as we will be exploring right to repair legislation for Aotearoa for the first time in a parliamentary context. So I'd just like to mention the Zoom etiquette again to you. Please remain muted to avoid background noise. And if you have a question or comment, please use the chat function. Be mindful of others' time and attention. And also your questions will be selected by myself and addressed by the speakers. Thank you very much. So firstly, I wanted to give a little background of this webinar, which is part of the first ever Repair Festival in Aotearoa from the 14th to the 22nd of September, all across the country, with 48 registered events. So the Right to Repair Aotearoa Coalition sits under the Repair Network Aotearoa, which started as Repair Cafe Aotearoa NZ. As a coalition, we started the first Right to Repair petition in New Zealand in 2021, which was delivered to Parliament in 2022 and presented to a select committee last year. Now the Green Party's Consumer Guarantees Right to Repair Amendment Bill is the next step in introducing right to repair legislation to Aotearoa. So today we have with us here a panel of experts in the field to share with you their insights into the right to repair movement, current developments and relevancy to Aotearoa. So our first panelist is Lerae Renata. Lerae is a water engineer at GHD and also a PhD student, and she will be able to share with us about Te Ao Māori. And I will be introducing all our four panelists at the time when they speak. I'm just going to share a little slide with you. So what I just talked about. And so this is the petition that was written in 2021 and presented to the then Minister of Environment, Honourable David Parker, the year after. And we also presented an oral submission to the Environment Committee last year. So the next step is now that we have a party that will be presented by the Green Party. And we are expecting this to be happening within the next few weeks. So our Right to Repair Coalition has prepared material that we are happy to share with you, and we will talk about this process as well. But firstly, I would like to ask Lerae, please, to introduce yourself, your whakapapa, and yeah, and then let us know your viewpoint on waste and repair in Aotearoa. Kia ora, Lerae.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Kina kai kōrero tēnā koutou ki Brigade and Zero Waste Network. Tēnā koutou. Hoki. Firstly, just want to say hello and acknowledge the people that have brought us together, especially Brigitte for hosting our hui today. He uri ahau o tainui ngāpui me nai te rangi, engari I tiwaki o ki tāmaki. So I reign from the mighty Kaikohe up north, and my dad is from up there. My dad is also from Tainui, Waikato, where I currently reside on the border between Auckland and Waikato, so I love being on the whenua here. And I also, my mum's side, are from Tauranga. So blessed for that beautiful little triangle of whakapapa there. but have been born and raised in Auckland my whole life, and I have been overseas and done little stints over there, but again, like the whenua always brings me home. So majority of my life has been here in New Zealand. I he mahi o kia GHD, so I'm also a water engineer by trade, and so that's what I do by day and by night. I like to say I'm a PhD student focusing on engineering best practice and standards, and looking at that from a Te Ao Māori lens. I I love sustainability. I love circularity, and naturally within those things is this theme of waste. And so I'm really privileged to not only just be a chemical and material engineer by background, but also provide insights from that Te Ao perspective. And if I just put out maybe 2 or 3 principles that guide my thinking in this space, and it's primarily based on the understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things and the impact of not just waste, but resources on the environment, and how vital it is for developing like these sustainable practices, not just to reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, so on and so forth, but consider the cultural and spiritual and also environmental implications of the things that we do. So what comes to mind from my standpoint or my perspective is kaitiakitanga, whakapapa, and rangatiratanga. And so kaitiakitanga or tiakitanga, which I like to use as a generalized way of referencing it, is guardianship and protection of the environment. So again, it plays on our responsibility and how we manage waste. So reducing that harm that waste has in the environment. And then we have our whakapapa, which is the connector of all things, the lineage. Denotes how we again relate to the environment, but also shows the intricacies of those relationships between people to people, and people to the environment. So a whakapapa for me reigns at the very basis and overall, because it makes those connections and binds, principles of people together. So, but in particular, with the right to repair, is this principle of rangatiratanga, which is autonomy and self-determination. And the right to repair for me, in a sense, is being able to enable or allow people to step into their own mana, really access their own ability to govern their own actions with intention, on the basis of what I've already spoken about, kaitiakitanga and whakapapa. So yeah, to me, the right to repair is giving power back to the person. And again, that's my mind frame in this space overall. So I think I'll just leave you with that little kōrero, and again, look forward to the rest of our speakers and answering any questions that anyone has. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, Mireille. Thank you very much. Very insightful and encouraging. Kia ora. I would like now to ask Professor Alex Sims, please, to come forward and share with us, your, is it Paul I'm actually asking, right? My apologies. Yes, Paul is stepping in, please, thank you. And so Paul is, as you probably, most of you will know, has previously been with Consumer NZ and has now his own business, which is Fix It First New Zealand. And he will share with you the question like, what is the right to repair? Why have one? And so forth, and all his wonderful experience as well. So I need to ask you to unmute, please, Paul. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Brigitte. Brilliant to see so many people here listening in. Let's hope we can keep it interesting. Yeah, so I was for 10 years, almost 10 years. I managed all the product testing at Consumer New Zealand. I'm a design engineer by trade. And now I essentially just advocate for repairability and durability in products. So I give you a background to what is the right to repair. So where did it come from? Brigitte, could you share the slides? That will help, just so that you have some context rather than listen to me go off on tangents, which tends to happen. It gives me context. It keeps me off the tangents if I can see what I'm meant to be talking to. So the sort of point of right to repair is that we own the products that we buy, so it's up to us what we do with them. And in the context of repair, that means if something breaks, then it should be our right. I mean, it's our choice, right, to try and repair it, whether we do that ourselves, or if we're not confident with that, to find somebody else with some expertise who can do it. And that somebody else is our choice as to who we pick. But right to repair started because of a frustration that we couldn't do that. And it started really with motor vehicles and agricultural equipment way back. And it wasn't necessarily so much that we couldn't fix them. It was that we were locked into fixing them through these authorized networks. The manufacturers were limiting what we could fix. And who could fix it for us, which namely was them, because then they could keep the profits from fixing it and push us into buying something else instead. With a big thing like a motor vehicle or a piece of farm equipment, that meant that we essentially were being stuck. We couldn't fix really simple things, and it was frustrated. It became expensive, and it was essentially a repair monopoly. Flick it on a slide, Brigitte. And one of the big names that got called out for this was John Deere in the US, because they were using software to prevent farmers diagnosing and fixing their own agricultural equipment unless John Deere came to unlock it for them, their authorized network, which put all sorts of delays and cost into it. And that sort of was the start of the right to repair movement. So why did we get to this? Well, you might hear people talking about planned obsolescence. And I guess my take on planned obsolescence is it's just this system of mass manufacturing that we're in. That entire system drives more efficiency and more profit all the time. And to maximize their profit in that system, it means businesses end up trying to sell more. And on the other side of that, we don't really penalize them for creating waste. So we've got a system where we're trying to be more and more efficient. We're selling more and more product. And when that product fails, it can be thrown away, and we're not actually capturing the full cost of the waste that we're creating. Moving on again, Brigitte. And that sort of hit home for me a few years ago. We did a study at Consumer, and the premise was, why don't we see lots and lots of refurbished secondhand products being sold by the manufacturers? Because we know a lot of them go back to them, because you take something back to a store and the first thing they do is take it off your hands and give you a replacement. So what happens to all these faulty or unwanted goods? So we bought some benchtop mixers. I created a really easy to repair fault in them. So I just disconnected a power cable, put a GPS tracker in them, and then returned them as faulty to a store or to several stores. And in half of the cases, within 2 days, they'd gone into landfill, and we tracked them going to the local landfills, which was a disaster, really, on every sense. Of course, in store, they gave us a replacement machine. So I ended up with a lot of new replacement benchtop mixers, but the ones that could easily be fixed ended up being thrown away. So while we were at Consumer as well, we were surveying, and we're doing it with the Repair Coalition. We're surveying consumers, and we find that about 80% of people come back and say, we want to repair things. Repair's becoming really mainstream. People really want to do this. But there's a frustration that when you try and repair something, it's not always easy, and it's not always economically viable. It's too expensive and it takes too long, and you can't find the parts and you can't find someone to fix it. And so the alternative is we don't repair it and we accept the store giving us the new one. So there are lots of barriers being put in our way. And that's sort of where the right to repair movement gets into detail and says, well, what do we actually need to try and fix here? So put it on the last slide, Brigitte, and I'll talk to that. And this is sort of the detail of what we get. And it breaks down into, there are elements of the product itself that we can do better. We can design a product to be more repairable. And then there's the service that you get. So it's the things that our retailers and the importers and the distributors do and make easy for us. So that includes things like providing repair information. The first challenge is that we as a consumer, as an owner of a product, I need to know that it's repairable. And if you can give me manuals, instructions, just make that clear, then I'm more likely to pursue a repair or give it a go. We need a replacement part quite often. If things wear out or things fail, I want to be able to buy a replacement part. I want it at a reasonable cost. I don't want it to cost almost as much as a replacement product in the first place. For the product, it needs to be easy to disassemble. And what we find with manufacturing and making manufacturing really efficient is you make the assembly incredibly efficient. And that means using things like glue or those little plastic tabs that snap together one way when you're putting it together, but are nearly impossible to take apart again. So we need to start thinking about designing products for taking them apart. And then back to the John Deere example, we don't want software barriers. We don't want diagnostic tools and being locked out of a very repairable product because I haven't got the right diagnostic code to make it work. And these are the things that right to repair legislation is starting to tackle around the world. And we're now got our own flavor of it starting to come in, hopefully.
Kia ora, Paul. That is really interesting, and it's wonderful, that you've taken us through the journey, from where these things started to kind of go in a direction, that I, more profit oriented than taking care of our resources and environment and also I guess, the inbuilt desire by people to take care of their belongings, right? Yeah, thank you. I will now like to ask Professor Alex Sims from university to share her insight with us, and I have just put in the link.
Hello everyone. So I've got to be careful because I could talk forever. So I've only got 5 to 10 minutes. So so my background is law. I'm in the commercial law department, and for many years I've done intellectual property law and then consumer law. And of course, the right to repair covers both of these areas plus more. And so I got asked a few years ago to write something on the right to repair, and I'd been interested in it. And so I wrote something, and then sort of it's all snowballed, and I've done a whole lot of work on it. So I think on the screen, Brigitte just pulled up the Consumer Guarantees of Right to Repair Amendment Bill. If you haven't had a read of it, please read it, because I always tell students, read the primary source, don't just read what other people have said about it. I'll go through it quickly, but I just want to make a couple of points going on from what Paul has said, is that these issues with right to repair are not new. They've been going on, but they're getting a lot worse because of the embedding of software. And so it's not just a case now of being able to get a spare part and putting it in, because parts pairing, which Paul had on this last slide, is where your product, whatever good, won't recognize the spare part that you're putting in, so it doesn't work. But also, it's not just repair, it's also just the ability to use your goods. And so this has been talked about for many, many years, but it's actually only coming home to roost now. So a very quick example, which I use often, is Tesla. So somebody had a Tesla, they wanted to put a tow bar on the Tesla. There were no spare parts for the tow bar, so went off and got an unauthorized person to put the tow bar on, and then it wouldn't tow anything. Phoned up Tesla and said, oh, and they said, oh, we've got to flick a switch to make it work, but we're not going to because you haven't got an authorized tow bar. You know, and so catch-22, but this, so it's actually controlling the ability to be able to use your goods. So right to repair is a lot wider now than just literally repairing. And a lot of people are shocked and outraged. How can that be? Well, people have been talking about this for 10, 20 years, you know, it's come along now. So just just say something quickly about the bill. It seems like a relatively simple bill, but it does quite a bit. But there's been some sort of a lot of discussion about it. And one of the things it won't do it won't cover something like tractors. Why? Because it would amend just the Consumer Guarantees Act, which only covers things that we normally buy for personal and domestic use. And most people are not buying a big, you know, $500,000 tractor, so that doesn't cover. And while sort of some of us would want a lot more, it's better to have this than nothing. And what's happened overseas, because as Paul was saying, a lot of the stuff, you know, has happened, been going on for a while, is they've often started with very narrow. For example, in Colorado, they started just with electrically powered wheelchairs. Okay? You might laugh and think that's crazy, but they've got that in, and then over time they've extended it. So, you know, it's better to start somewhere rather than saying we want a comprehensive one and nothing ever gets done. One of the things the right to repair bill will do is remove the current loophole, which is that if you're told when you're buying a new product that there's no repair or spare parts facilities available, that loophole will be removed. The trouble is it won't actually stop people from breaking the law, but at least it's something. So I've just got my my act here. So that's one of the ones. Another one which should help is that, as I said, it's software, and also I don't know if Paul mentioned it, but the tools that you use, they've been designed so that you can't just use your ordinary screwdriver or something, even if you can get into it. So information, also things like those digital locks and information, all that, is if the consumer requests it to be provided with that information, which is really, really good. So again, it's moved on just from physical things to other information as well. And, you know, just tools and other information necessary for diagnosing, maintaining or repairing the goods. And again, that's important because it's not literally just repairing, it's also the maintaining. So if you don't maintain, it will die, effectively, the goods. Now, I'll wind this up in a second, but there is part of the issue is that you, as a consumer, you'll have the right to request a repair, and it says that the manufacturer must repair the goods within a reasonable time. Okay, the issue we have is not all goods are repairable, and so while you've got the so-called right, it's not actually going to work a lot of the time. And so how does that going to work in practice? We don't know. Another quick thing that it will do is if you have a statement in like a warranty or a guarantee that says that if you use unauthorized repairers, for example, your 12-month manufacturer's warranty is no longer valid, that's quite common. Those type of clauses will have no effect. Which is fine. Another small thing, if you're going to sort of be writing to a politician, or if hopefully, fingers crossed, the bill does get to its first reading, if you want to give any feedback, one of the areas to give feedback on the bill is that at the moment the Commerce Commission can't actually take actions under this. If the retailer says, look, yes, I know it says I must repair it, but I can't repair it, or I choose not to repair it, there's nothing actually that the Commerce Commission can do. And that's because under the Consumer Guarantees Act, it's only the consumer that can do something, with one exception. That's if there's a misrepresentation of your rights. But if they acknowledge your rights and just say we're not doing anything, there's nothing that can be done. So one of the small suggestions I have for amending this bill is allow the Commerce Commission to get in to be able to bring an action for that. Anyway, I think, I mean, as I said, I'm going forever. If anyone's really interested, contact me later and I can talk people through it. As I said, it's a good first step. And one quick thing is that one thing I am worried about is if it gets through, which hopefully it does, is that, and I've seen this in other situations where the government can say, we've got a law against, or we've got a law of right to repair. Well, yes, but only a narrow law that only affects some things. So it's just got to be acknowledged that this is the first step in a journey, but a necessary step.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Alex. It's really appreciated. And there are also already some questions, very good questions in the chat that we can talk about very soon. But firstly, I'd like to ask Sarah Leclerc from Auckland Council, please, to share with you your insights and considerations about right to repair. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa. It's great to see so many people interested in in repair. I come from a family of the third girl of a father who wanted boys. So and at that time spent a lot of time in the garage fixing things as until my brother came along, and so have a very strong background in DIY repair and the want to do it. So landing a role at Auckland Council's Waste Planning Manager, where I had the opportunity to influence that, has been a sort of bit of a dream come true, really. We have a new waste management plan. We have a zero waste by 2040 goal. And what we'll see, and Lorraine has been a part of that journey. So we really thank and acknowledge Lorraine's input into that and making sure that we are on our steps towards having a much more sort of looking at it through a Te Ao Māori lens and having the principles of actually woven and embedded through that. So it's still a work in progress, but we feel that this is better than the last one, and the next one will be even better. So, but the one of the parts of the vision, we still aspire to be zero waste by 2040, but one of the aspects working towards a circular economy, but using resources for their best and highest value for as long as possible. And that was something actually that came through really strongly from Mana Whenua, that wording. So we are really delighted to have that in there, because what it gives us is a really strong hook for repair. And it's something about taking us up the waste hierarchy. We know we can't recycle our way out of this, but having those strong hooks within our vision and agreed within our vision is fantastic. So in terms of what's Auckland Council's role or any local authority's role in this, we see setting that vision and direction. We also have a resource recovery network, so the Auckland Council and community, very importantly, resource recovery network. So that provides the opportunity for places and spaces for repair that are open to the community and supported by the council and supported by other things as well. And so there are repair facilities and also as well as tool libraries. The other opportunity is partnerships with the community. So we can assist through contracts, actually, because having organisations that do repair, it costs money, and it can't all be on the smell of an oily rag, and it can't all be on goodwill. It actually needs to be well funded so that these places exist for when people want to be able to repair. So those, that's opportunity through contracts with council is a really fundamental part. The other thing that we have is the Waste Minimisation and Innovation Fund. So that helps kickstart things. And we've, the Auckland Library of Tools is an example that was funded last year. It doesn't keep things going forever, but it does help kickstart and get things going, which is really important as well. The other aspect from a council perspective is advocacy to central government. We've been nagging central government about a lot of things for a lot of time. So we can back up those things like the right to repair. We can make sure that from a council perspective, we can get that backing behind and try and make sure that we have the right frameworks in place, do our role there. So things that we need to be advocating for, the extended producer responsibility, that sort of thing, we can make sure that we're doing that as well, and that it's filtered down through to that local level. And the other thing, in our new plan that's hopefully going to go through and be adopted by the council next month, is looking at the opportunity of what does a repair city look like. We have it's something I know that's close to Brigitta's heart, but could we make Auckland the next repair city or the first repair city in Aotearoa? So what could we do about that? And council having a role in that and getting the political mandate behind that to making it happen. You don't need the permission, but it's great to have that backing. So what can we do in that sort of that broader space? So just understanding the role of council is not necessarily to do everything, but it's just an enabler to try and facilitator to try and make sure that we've got the right facilities in place and the right mechanisms in place to enable the community and professionals and organisations and businesses to move forward. So.
Brilliant, very inspiring. Thank you so much, Sarah. That's fantastic. So now we just open the floor for questions, and we like to encourage you to do this via the chat, and then we can, guide them to the appropriate panelist. There are some comments there that are actually talking about some wonderful ideas that one could do, and I guess we are focusing within the interest of time, as well as the expertise of accessibility of expertise of our panelists. There's a question by Megan Cooper, and Alex answered this in part. So I'm going to read out the question. Does the proposed legislation account for existing legislation that is a barrier to repairing things yourself? I own a motorcycle that was written off as flood damaged in the Auckland floods. Legislation requires me to replace all of the electrical components with original parts, even those that are not water damaged. The cost of the repair far exceeds the value of the bike bought new.
Unfortunately, no, different bits of legislation don't talk to each other. And we actually, someone brought up a similar issue to us a couple of weeks ago, where goods, electrical devices and things have to have the plugs cut off before anyone can do any work. And then that almost makes it uneconomical to repair. I mean, it's crazy. And like what you're saying there with the motorbike is silly, frankly. But we have been told that there is the regulations review parliamentary thing. Paul, can you remember, Brigitte, what it is? There's a forum of parliaments that's set up, and the point about the chopping off of the plug was brought up, and all the politicians were annoyed about this, and they're going off and asking questions to try to get the regulations changed. So what I can suggest is we'll try and find out what it is. I've forgotten the exact words, and go to them and just explain this, because the politicians are looking to make changes, because this makes absolutely no sense and it's counterproductive to everything. That helps.
Oh, kia ora, Alex, that's fantastic. Yes, I also like to mention that we will download the chat comments, and then we will find some answers for you and email them to you. So if we're not able to cover everything, so you will still hear some of our comments. What about Louise from Beautification Trust? Their question is maybe directing to Paul. Would the bill force the sellers of cheap, mass-produced stuff, for example, Kmart, to ensure their products are repairable? I imagine there would be a lot of pushback from those sorts of retailers, and some of the goods they sell simply aren't repairable. How should that be addressed? Big question, Paul.
Yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if we could stop Kmart being Kmart? So the answer is that's the intent of how the bill's written, because it applies to all products that should be made repairable. The practical result is it's not going to change the Kmarts of the world. They're not going to change because we've got some amendment to the Consumer Guarantees Act, because a lot of them try and ignore the Consumer Guarantees Act as it stands now. Unless a consumer says that they know their rights, they will try and ignore it now. So I can't see that changing. There's a big difference between what we're trying to do here, or what this bill's trying to do here, and the way that right to repair has started to pervade all the US states. Because that came from this frustration that you had to go to the manufacturer to get the repairs done, a lot of the US bills have focused around making sure that what can be done through an authorized network can also be done independently. So it's about extending what can be repaired to make those repairs easier to access and cheaper. With this bill, what this tries to do is say, if you sell a product in New Zealand, it has to be repairable, which is a real massive step forward from what has happened anywhere else. But the question is, we've got to balance that with it actually being workable and actually making a difference. So the intention is that, yes, that's what we want it to do. The practical reality is it needs some real powers of enforcement to make that become something that actually happens.
And that's, so just jump in, that comes to the point I was saying before about the Commerce Commission can't do anything. As if people are saying, well, yes, we know you've got this right, they're not misrepresenting it. So that was where some changes would have to be made, and changes could be made. You know, that would be one of the ones that you would need to argue at the select committee. So put a submission and just say, for example, that the Commerce Commission needs to be able to bring actions, plus make it so that, you know, every product that they sell that's not can't be repaired, then, you know, that's up to 10,000 per product. And money, you know, if they're facing quite stiff fines, that may do something. But as Paul said, at the moment, no, it won't really have an effect.
Feedback from Australia, because Australia put forward and got past their own motor vehicles bill for a right to repair for motor vehicles, and that has a lot of teeth from the ACCC to regulate that and to impose penalties. And I heard recently that Honda have actually been charged with that, and they've been hit with quite a substantial fine. So that's the sort of thing that makes it worthwhile, because, you know, Kmart are not going to change what they're doing if it doesn't impact their profit, or it doesn't impact their profitability in how they look to their consumers. So it's got to hurt them. It's got to hit them really where it hurts. And it's not going to be individual consumers saying, oh, I want to repair this $10 kettle rather than have a new one. Because as soon as they say, oh, we can't repair that, but hey, have a new one, most people, I hate to say it, but most people will take the new one, even if they have massive intention to repair.
And just on that, just quickly, is there is a big difference, as we know, between Australia and New Zealand. And one of the things is they do have large fines, whereas New Zealand, we don't. Okay. And when I said 10,000 per product, I mean 10,000 per unit sold, not just because otherwise $10,000 to sell this range of jugs isn't enough. So you actually need to, as they say, hit them in the pocket to do that. Also, another quick thing is, this has come up before, is that there is some fear, reticence, because people are thinking that people should be able to buy a $20 jug. Okay. And they're saying, if you're doing this, then people won't be able to do that. But then we've got to balance it up against what's being sent to landfill. And if goods are more expensive, people will take better use of them. Plus, they will be refurbished and sold. So people can buy second-hand goods that are still better than the cheap ones. But it is the pushback that you get from people.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that the bill mandates an expense account guarantee related to repairs and spare parts that manufacturers give consumers under the Consumer Guarantees Act from 1993. But manufacturers can actually opt out of giving notice to consumers, by giving notice to consumers. So if enacted, this bill would amend the repair and spare parts guarantee to remove manufacturers' ability to opt out of the guarantee by giving notice. So I guess that's a positive aspect, you know, of this bill, you know, and I guess a good reason, you know, to mandate for this bill. I'm just going to ask one other question. And this is by Bernard, and he is talking about the timescale for supplying spare parts. That might be another question for Paul, possibly. So he's saying, I bought a house load of curtain rails about 6 years ago. A couple of years ago, I broke a few of the plastic runners. Harvey Furnishings had stopped stocking that product and were not the slightest bit interested. I would now have to focus to have a full house of obsolete products, except I managed to find spare parts in England. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, the way the Consumer Guarantees Act is written, it talks about what is reasonable. So it is never specified a length of time, a specific length of time that a product should last for. And we did a bit of work at Consumer around that, trying to put some times on particular appliances, but it's really difficult because it depends on how much you paid, how much you use them, the individual product types. So it's a real can of worms. So the way it's written in the Consumer Guarantees Act, it will be this reasonable expectation of durability, essentially. So if you as a reasonable person expect a product to be repairable for a certain amount of time, then that's your argument. And of course, you'll get the retailer and manufacturer arguing back with you. But yeah, it won't specify an actual amount of time unless it's rewritten. That started to happen in the US legislation. California put an amount of time and based on the cost of the product in their legislation. I think it was if it retails, if it wholesales between over $50, it has to be supported for 3 years. If it's over $100, it has to be supported for 7 years. So it sets a minimum period when spare parts have to be and repair has to be available for, which I think is a good thing.
Great, thank you, Paul. I have a question that may be relevant, or maybe Sarah will be able to comment on, and it's about New Zealand emissions reduction. So the question here is from Rima. Are New Zealand emissions reduction targets a useful lever to push politicians harder in these areas? Where are the emissions of imported pre-landfill goods accounted for? Is this something you could comment on, Sarah, perhaps?
Yes, I just actually noted that one in the list and was just trying to pull together a sensible answer to that. So this is about consumption emissions, because at the moment we look at material types as they are in landfill, and that's where we account for emissions. But we have definitely moved, definitely taken a step forward within Auckland Council's own waste assessment, which is the sort of the 6 yearly account that we take, and looked at all of everything that ends up in landfill from a perspective of not just tonnage, but also emissions. So that's a big step forward for a start. But the next step for us is also then looking at those consumption emissions, so full life cycle of that. So it's a work in progress. We're not quite there yet, but it's something that we do know that we need to look at to make sure that we have that full picture of emissions. It's not just at the point at which it ends up in landfill. So we're starting on that journey. There may be other more, like people like Toitu who have done further work in this space.
Thank you, Sarah. That's awesome. Yes, so I also wanted to, I mean, this is great to have these discussions, and there's so much more to say, of course, but it's wonderful for you all to make time, to engage in this important conversation, as we are also so close to a potential change in legislation. And with this in mind, I also wanted to mention and point you to the Right to Repair Aotearoa Coalition website, because we are currently campaigning for MPs to consider the bill. And this is not a parliament bill, so which means it's not a government bill. So the process is that it will have to, be considered by all political parties. And so we actually have written a draft letter, which you can access through our website. I'm just going to put this into the chat right now. And what we are encouraging is people to contact their local MP and talk to them about the bill, make them aware of the bill, and also what might be the would be the positive aspects, if this bill came through. We are currently expecting this bill to be presented to Parliament for the first reading in a few weeks' time. There is no definite date as yet, but it is expected to be rather sooner than later. So we hope. And so it's really, really good, if the MPs are actually informed of this bill and maybe had a chance to talk with you. And we also have MPs coming to repair cafes or any other repair educational situations where they can actually learn about the importance of repair. And what this bill could do for Aotearoa, as we have mentioned, is, this would be the first time that this would ever be considered, in Aotearoa. So, yeah, very exciting. I just wonder if any of the panelists would like to comment and offer a last comment before we come to a closure.
Let's make one quick comment on it. So there's been right to repair legislation and bills all around the world almost, one thing that's unique about this one in New Zealand is it would apply to almost unlimited number of goods. And that's one of the things getting people very nervous. So, you know, even in Europe and the UK, it's a much smaller number of goods. So that might be one way of getting it passed. As Paul said, the opposition from National and ACT, potentially. So it's just a thing to think of. Maybe if you're writing to MPs, just say, might be good, it's better to have something there than it not get through, even if it's whittled down a bit.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Yes, and as we've learned, you know, National Party members sort of like to be able to, you are able to connect it with the concept of localism, you know, and that is appeals to them as well as individual choice. So these are, you know, it's like aligning, you know, the bill, you know, with the respective parties' values can be very useful. Yeah. I'm just having a look. Are there any further questions or comments? Oh, there's a very long question by Trevor. He's talking about cheap stuff and quality stuff versus quality stuff, right? That would be a Paul Smith topic, right? Thank you, Paul.
Cheap versus quality. Yes, one of the things, this is going to be an anecdote more than an answer. One of the things we found when we were looking at small kitchen appliances and repairability and durability, the thing that really surprised me is there was actually not a lot of difference between some of the brands that were real mid-range, mid to high-end household brands and the real cheap stuff. There was just a real general lack of repairability in a lot of those sort of small kitchen type appliances. So yeah, it's difficult because people have always said, oh, do I need to, if I pay more, will I get something that's more repairable? It's like, not really. You might get something that's more durable, but it's not necessarily going to be more repairable because none of them really offer a lot of repair for certain types of products. So yeah, so it's hard. I guess the thing with more expensive stuff and the thing that I think with repairability will also help is this idea that a lot of the time we give up products and we're all guilty of it, and most of us are guilty of it. I'll hold my hand up because you're finished with it, but that product still has a lot of life left in it, particularly if it can be repaired or refurbished. So what we're trying to unlock with repair as well is this ongoing refurbishing, second-hand, second life market. So actually, rather than we end up 5-10 years down the track with people stuck into buying $10 kettles or cheap washing machines or whatever it is, we actually have more repairable, more durable products that end up being reused and repurposed. And essentially, it's getting us to the point that we have with our used car market. Most people don't buy a new car; they buy a second-hand car. Why don't we do that with other products? It drives me mad. I just don't have an answer for that, but I just don't see why we don't. Sorry, that was an anecdote that turned into a ramble.
That's great. That's your style, Paul. That's fantastic. Awesome. Cool. I wonder if I could ask Lorraine to make a comment on our discussion so far. Kia ora, Lorraine.
I just think some of my closing thoughts are just around Te Ao Māori and how holistic and almost helicopter-like it is, in the sense that it brings all kaupapa together. And so for me personally, and this is why I drive and do what I do and offer input into these different groups, whether it be repair or reuse or in any platform, is the idea of just making sure that all these streams are aligned. And so that's why I think in terms of, from a Te Ao Māori perspective, having a base set of values that we all operate off so that decisions from that are consistent are really, really important, which is why this kaupapa, which aligns with so much with Te Ao Māori, is almost a really good example or lead for other sectors, I find. So yeah, I think again, just maybe those, just my thoughts anyway, is that when we shift the balance or weight in one area, what impacts does it have, or not even impacts, but like what opportunities can it provide to make other connections cross sector, so in a broader sense. But grateful for what's been spoken about today, especially from our speakers and the expertise in this field. So again, just acknowledge that too. And so again, I'll pass that arco back to you, Brigitte.
No, kia ora. Yeah, really lovely. Yes, and you're right. I mean, repair is such a tangible thing. So it's actually easier to see, what it does to the environment and all the subsequent sort of experiences that people have on a personal level and also societal, environmental level. Yeah, so you're right. Yeah, it's a good example and can get people, on the journey. Beautiful. Now, so the Right to Repair Aotearoa Coalition Group will continue the work and will also continue being in touch with you and letting you know where things are happening. If you've got any questions, please email us on nzrepaircafe info@gmail.com and we will get in touch with you. Yeah, so, and I would like to really thank all the panelists, sharing their expertise with us. And I know there is so much more to share and to talk about, and it's ever evolving. I'd also like to thank you all for participating and giving up your lunchtime today to be with us and learn some more. And yeah, we're very grateful for the engagement. And as I said, we can anticipate the first reading Parliament sort of in a few weeks' time. So if you would like to be involved, please email us or go to our website and explore this. And perhaps if you have the opportunity, speak to your local MP about the bill as well. I would like to now close the meeting with a karakia whakamitunga. Kua mātua a mātou mahi mo tēnei wā. Manakitia mama katua o mātou hua. O mātou whānau, aio ki te aorangi. Our work is finished for the moment. Blessing upon us all, our friends, our families. Peace to the universe. Thank you again for your participation. It was wonderful to see you all and your enthusiasm, your commitment, right? And encountering these dilemmas. So please get in touch. Enjoy the rest of the Repair Festival. And yeah, we will hope to see you sometime soon. Kia ora, ka kite.